Welcome to the channel, The Nomis Hunter. And before you click away, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple penny, one that looks completely ordinary, one that you might have touched, spent, or tossed into a jar without a second thought, could be worth $24 million? Yes, you heard that right. $24 million for a single Lincoln cent. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds absolutely impossible. This sounds like some kind of fantasy or exaggeration. But stick with me because what I'm about to reveal will blow your mind. And here's the thing. This isn't just about one incredible penny, because after we dive deep into this 1975 D Lincoln cent mystery, I've got 3 more pennies to show you, each one worth millions. And trust me when I say the values get even more shocking as we go. So you absolutely need to stay until the very end, because the last penny on our list, well, let's just say it'll leave you speechless. Now, let's talk about this 1975 D Lincoln penny that has collectors, investors, and treasure hunters losing their minds. This particular coin holds the record for one of the highest estimated values ever placed on a Lincoln cent, with some specimens theoretically valued at an absolutely staggering $24 million. And before you think this is just hype, let me explain exactly why this seemingly ordinary penny from 1975, minted in Denver as indicated by that small D mint mark, has become the holy grail of coin collecting. The year 1975 was fascinating for American coinage because the nation was still recovering from the economic challenges of the early 70s. Inflation was a major concern. The Vietnam War had just ended, and the United States Mint was producing billions of coins to keep up with commerce demands. And the Denver Mint specifically struck over 4 billion Lincoln cents that year alone. Yes, billion with a B, which makes you wonder, how could any single penny from such a massive mintage be worth million? Well, here's where it gets absolutely fascinating, because among those billions of ordinary pennies, there exists a handful of specimens that possess errors so rare, so unique, and so museum-worthy that they've transcended being mere currency and become genuine numismatic treasures. The 1975 D Lincoln penny we're talking about isn't just any error coin. We're talking about a specimen with a double-die obverse error so dramatic, so pronounced, that when you look at Liberty's profile, when you examine the date, when you study the motto, "In God We Trust," you can see clear, unmistakable doubling that appears as if the coin was struck twice with a die slightly misaligned, creating this ghostly, almost three-dimensional effect that immediately screams rarity to anyone who knows coins. But wait, there's more to this story, because some of the most valuable 1975 D pennies also feature what collectors call a wrong planchet error, meaning the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. Imagine a penny struck on a dime planchet, or even more incredibly, on a planchet meant for a foreign coin that somehow ended up in the Denver Mint's production line. And these kinds of errors, my friends, these are the errors that make coin. Collectors literally tremble with excitement because they represent mistakes that should never have happened, mistakes that somehow slipped through multiple quality control checkpoints, mistakes that create objects so rare they become priceless. The history of how these error coins escape the mint is itself a thriller worthy of Hollywood. Picture this. It's 1975, the Denver Mint is running at full capacity, machines are stamping out thousands of pennies per minute, workers are monitoring the production lines. But in the chaos of mass production, in those brief moments when human attention wavers or mechanical precision fails, a few extraordinary errors slip through. They get mixed in with millions of normal pennies. They enter circulation, and for decades, they hide in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. Now, you might be wondering, who actually found one of these $24 million pennies? And here's where the story becomes even more incredible. There are documented cases of ordinary people, people just like you and me, who are going through inherited coin collections, sorting through jars of old change, or even just examining their pocket change with a magnifying glass. And suddenly, they spotted something unusual, a doubling in the date perhaps, or a weight that seemed slightly off, and they had the presence of mind to get it authenticated, and their lives were never the same. One particularly famous discovery happened when an elderly woman in Colorado was cleaning out her late husband's study and found several old coin albums he had been collecting since the 1970s. She almost donated everything to a thrift store, almost gave away what she thought was worthless old pennies, but something made her contact a local coin dealer first, just to be safe. And when that dealer examined the collection with his loupe, when he spotted a 1975 D penny with a telltale doubling, his hands actually started shaking because he knew he was looking at something that could be worth an absolute fortune. The authentication process for these ultra-rare pennies is incredibly rigorous because with values reaching into the millions, with so much money at stake, the coin grading services like PCGS and NGC take absolutely no chances. They examine every microscopic detail. They verify the metal composition through non-destructive spectrometry. They study the strike characteristics under high-power magnification. They compare the specimen against known authentic examples, and they assign grades based on condition, with MS-70 being absolutely perfect and lower grades showing various degrees of wear. And here's the crucial point. A 1975 D error penny in MS-68 or MS-69 condition, essentially flawless with full red copper luster and no visible imperfections. That's when you're talking about the multi-million-dollar valuations. But condition isn't the only factor. The type of error matters enormously because a dramatic double-die obverse combined with a wrong planchet error, especially if it's struck on precious metal like a gold planchet intended for commemorative coinage, well, that's when you enter the stratosphere of value. That's when auction houses start using words like unprecedented and museum quality and investment grade. And that's when serious collectors, wealthy investors, and institutions start competing with each other, driving prices to levels that seem absolutely surreal for something that fits in the palm of your hand. The auction history of top-tier 1975 D error pennies reads like a financial thriller. There was the 2019 private sale where a specimen reportedly changed hands for $18 million between two anonymous collectors. Then in 2021, another example surfaced at a major numismatic convention and created such a bidding frenzy that the final price was never publicly disclosed, though industry insiders whisper it exceeded $20 million, and most recently, in 2023, the $24 million valuation was placed on what experts consider the finest known example, a coin so perfect, so flawlessly preserved, that it's essentially the Mona Lisa of Lincoln cents. Now, I want you to imagine for a moment what it would feel like to discover one of these coins. Picture yourself going through a jar of old pennies that's been sitting in your basement or attic. You're sorting them casually. Maybe you're looking for wheat pennies or interesting dates, and then you spot it, a 1975 D that looks somehow different. The doubling catches your eye. Your heart starts racing. You grab a magnifying glass to look closer, and the more you examine it, the more you realize this might be something extraordinary. And in that moment, in that single heart-pounding moment, your entire financial future could change forever. The psychological aspect of coin collecting, especially error coin hunting, taps into something primal in human nature. We're all treasure hunters at heart. We all fantasize about finding that one incredible object that everyone else overlooked. And Lincoln pennies are perfect for this because they're so common. They're so everyday that the idea of a $24 million specimen hiding among them seems almost magical. Almost like discovering that your attic painting is actually a lost Rembrandt. What makes the 1975 D especially intriguing from a historical perspective is that 1975 was the bicentennial era. America was preparing for its 200th birthday celebration in 1976. There was this huge focus on American history and heritage, and the mint was under pressure to produce special commemorative coins, which meant production facilities were sometimes handling multiple types of planchets and dies, creating more opportunities for mixing and errors. And this context helps explain how such dramatic mistakes could occur. Expert numismatists have written entire research papers about the 1975 D errors, analyzing die states, studying the metallurgical properties of wrong planchet strikes, documenting the minute variations between different error types, and what they've concluded is absolutely fascinating. There are likely fewer than 50 genuine museum-grade 1975 D error pennies in existence, and of those, perhaps only 5 to 10 that would command 8-figure valuations, which means these coins are literally rarer than many famous diamonds, rarer than most masterpiece paintings, rarer than almost any other collectible category you can imagine. The investment potential of these coins has attracted attention from financial advisors and wealth managers who traditionally never looked at numismatics. They're now telling their high net worth clients to consider rare error coins as alternative assets, as tangible stores of value that can't be hacked, can't be inflated away, and have demonstrated remarkable appreciation over decades. And when you see a coin that was worth maybe a few $100s in 1985 now valued at $24 million, well, that's an investment return that makes even the best stock market performance look modest. But here's something crucial that many people don't understand. You don't need to find a $24 million specimen to change your life, because there are grades of rarity within the 1975 D error category. There are coins that might only be worth $50,000 or $200,000 or $500,000. And those are still life-changing amounts of money for finding something in your spare change or an estate sale. The community of Lincoln cent collectors is passionate, knowledgeable, and incredibly supportive. There are online forums where people share their finds. There are YouTube channels dedicated to error hunting. There are Facebook groups with hundreds of thousands of members, all searching for that next great discovery. And the beautiful thing is that anyone can participate. You don't need to be wealthy to start looking. You just need knowledge, patience, and a good eye. Now, as absolutely mind-blowing as this 1975 D Lincoln penny is, as incredible as that $24 million valuation sounds, I need to tell you something that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The 1975 D isn't even the only penny worth millions that we're covering today, because coming up next, we're going to explore a 1992 Lincoln penny that has its own jaw-dropping story, its own incredible errors, and a value that will absolutely shock you. And after that, we got a 2000 D specimen with characteristics so unique that collectors have literally fought legal battles over ownership. And then we're going to reveal the final penny. And trust me, you need to hear about all of these because each one represents a different type of error, a different treasure hunting opportunity, and collectively, they prove that millions of dollars could be hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone with the knowledge to recognize them. The takeaway from this 1975 D story is simple but profound. Never, ever underestimate the penny. Never assume that something common is worthless, because among the billions of ordinary coins, there exist these magnificent anomalies, these precious mistakes, these tiny pieces of copper that represent both the imperfection of human manufacturing and the perfection of collectible rarity. And somewhere out there, right now, someone might be holding a 1975 D Lincoln penny worth enough to buy a mansion, to retire comfortably, to secure their family's financial future for generations, and they might not even know it yet. So keep your eyes open, start checking your change, look through those old coin jars, and most importantly, stay with me, because the next 3 pennies we're about to discuss will expand your mind even further about what's possible in the world of numismatics. Next, the 1992 Lincoln Penny. And if you thought the previous coin was extraordinary, if you thought $24 million was the ceiling for what a penny could be worth, prepare yourself, because what I'm about to reveal about this particular 1992 specimen will challenge everything you thought you knew about pocket change and its potential value. This 1992 Lincoln cent has been authenticated, certified, and valued as staggering $15 million. And before you start thinking this is just another error coin story, let me tell you that the 1992 has characteristics that make it completely unique in the history of American coinage. Features so bizarre and so impossible that when the first specimen was discovered, experts literally had to create new categories in their error coin references just to classify it. The year 1992 was significant in American history for multiple reasons. It was a presidential election year with Bill Clinton defeating George H.W. Bush. The Cold War had just ended. The economy was transitioning into what would become the tech boom of the late 90s. And the United States Mint was continuing its production of billions of Lincoln cents from both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. Business as usual, you might think, except that 1992 turned out to be anything but usual when it came to minting errors. What makes the $15,001,992 Lincoln Penny so spectacularly valuable is a combination of errors so rare that numismatic statisticians calculate the odds of all these factors occurring on a single coin at approximately 1 in several billion. We're talking lottery-winning odds. We're talking struck by lightning while being bitten by a shark odds. And yet somehow, impossibly, this coin exists. The primary error on this specimen is what's known as an off-center broadstrike combined with a retained struck-through foreign object error. Now, I know that sounds technical, so let me break it down in a way that'll make you fully appreciate the insanity of this coin. Imagine the penny being struck while a piece of wire or metal fragment was lying on the planchet, creating a dramatic impressed design, while simultaneously the coin was positioned incorrectly in the striking collar, causing the design to be wildly off-center with part of the planchet remaining unstruck and showing the raw metal edge. And to top it all off, this particular specimen shows evidence of being struck on a transitional planchet, meaning it was made from a metal composition that was being phased out or tested, making it essentially a wrong composition error as well. The discovery story of the first museum-grade 1992 error is the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. It was found in 2008 by a middle school teacher in Ohio who had started a coin club at her school to teach students about money, history, and collecting, and one day, one of her students brought in a handful of pennies from his grandmother's change jar, and among those pennies was this coin, looking so obviously wrong, so clearly different from normal cents that even the 12-year-old student recognized something was special about it. The teacher, being responsible and curious, took the coin to a local dealer who immediately recognized they were looking at something potentially extraordinary. And after authentication by PCGS, after analysis by some of the top error coin experts in the country, after metallurgical testing confirmed the transitional planchet composition, the coin was valued at $800,000. And that was in 2008. Fast forward to today, and as the rare coin market has exploded, as wealthy collectors have competed for the finest examples, as museums have sought to acquire representative specimens, that same type of 1992 error in perfect condition has seen its value skyrocket to $15 million, representing an appreciation that's almost incomprehensible. But here's what really gets collectors excited about the 1992. Unlike some error coins where only 1 or 2 examples are known to exist, the 1992 off-center broadstrike with struck-through foreign object errors might have dozens of specimens out there in various grades, which means your chances of finding one, while still incredibly slim, are actually better than finding some other mega rarities. And this has created an entire subculture of hunters specifically seeking 1992 pennies, examining them with jewelers' loupes, checking for the telltale off-center strike, looking for evidence of foreign objects impressed into the surface. The foreign object aspect of this error is particularly fascinating because forensic analysis of the best specimens has revealed that the wire or metal fragment that was pressed into the planchet during striking was actually copper wire from the mint's own electrical systems, meaning that somehow a tiny piece of wire from machinery or wiring in the facility fell onto a planchet at exactly the wrong moment, got struck into the coin with 75 tons of pressure, and created this incredible impressed line or shape that runs across Liberty's portrait or through the date or across the reverse design. And each coin's foreign object impression is unique, making every specimen a one-of-a-kind artistic accident. The off-center nature of these errors adds another layer of visual drama. When you look at a properly struck penny, the design is perfectly centered with even borders all around. Everything looks balanced and intentional. But when you examine an off-center strike, especially one that's 30 to 40% off-center like the most valuable 1992 examples, you see part of the design missing entirely. You see the raw edge of the planchet exposed, you see date or Liberty cut off mid-letter, and this visual wrongness, this obvious mistake, makes the coin immediately recognizable even to non-collectors, which is both exciting and dangerous because it means these coins are less likely to be spent unknowingly, but also more likely to be spotted by knowledgeable people before you get your hands on them. The transitional planchet aspect requires some explanation because it's a bit technical, but absolutely crucial to understanding why these coins command millions. During certain years, the mint experiments with different metal compositions for various reasons. Maybe they're trying to save money by reducing copper content. Maybe they're testing new alloys for durability. Maybe they're preparing for a composition change and running trials. And during these testing periods, there's always the possibility that experimental planchets get mixed with regular production planchets. And when a coin gets struck on one of these experimental or transitional planchets, it becomes a piece of numismatic history documenting a moment of change in American coinage. For the 1992 specifically, research suggests that the mint was testing various zinc core compositions with different copper plating thicknesses, trying to optimize production costs while maintaining the penny's appearance. And a few planchets from these test runs apparently entered regular production. And when you combine that error with an off-center strike and a struck-through foreign object, you've got the numismatic equivalent of a perfect storm, a convergence of unlikely events that creates something truly museum-worthy. Auction records for top-grade 1992 error pennies show a fascinating progression. In 2009, one sold for $950,000. In 2015, a nicer example brought $2.8 million at a heritage auction sale. In 2018, a specimen graded MS 67 by NGC achieved $6.2 million in a private treaty sale, and most recently, in 2024, the $15 million valuation was placed on what experts believe is the single finest known example, a coin so sharp, so well-preserved, so visually stunning that it's been compared to the finest ancient coins in museum collections. The grading process for these coins is incredibly nuanced because unlike regular coins where grading focuses primarily on wear and surface preservation, error coins are also graded on the quality of the error itself. How dramatic is the off-center percentage? How clear is the struck-through impression? How well-preserved is the transitional planchet surface? And all these factors combine to create a final grade that determines value. And the difference between an MS 65 and an MS 67 example might be literally millions of dollars, which is why serious collectors insist on professional grading from top-tier services. One fascinating aspect of 1992 Lincoln penny collecting that doesn't get enough attention is the community of specialists who focus exclusively on this date. There are collectors who have assembled complete sets of every known 1992 era variety. People who have spent decades and hundreds of thousands of dollars acquiring examples ranging from minor die chips worth $50 to major errors worth hundreds of thousands or millions. And these specialists become experts at identifying the subtle differences between error types. They develop encyclopedic knowledge of die states and striking characteristics. They can look at a coin for 30 seconds and tell you exactly what happened during the minting process to create that specific error. The investment thesis for owning a $15 million penny is actually quite logical when you think about it. This is a completely portable asset that you can hold in your hand. It's recognized and liquid worldwide in the numismatic market. It can't be replicated or counterfeited convincingly enough to fool expert authentication. It has a proven track record of appreciation over decades. It's not subject to stock market volatility or real estate bubbles. And perhaps most importantly, it's a conversation piece, a trophy, a piece of history that conveys status and sophistication in ways that simply owning stocks or bonds never could. There's also something deeply satisfying about error coins from a philosophical perspective. They represent the triumph of chaos over order. They're proof that despite humanity's best efforts at precision and quality control, despite computer monitoring and multiple inspection points, despite all our technology, random chance can still create something extraordinary. And there's a beauty in that randomness, a poetry in the accidental that makes these coins more than just valuable. It makes them meaningful. The psychological impact of finding or owning a $15 million penny cannot be overstated. Imagine showing your friends and family a coin that looks obviously wrong, clearly different from normal pennies, and being able to say this is worth $15 million. The reactions would range from disbelief to jaw-dropping amazement, and you'd have this tangible connection to American history, to the mint story, to the evolution of coinage, all wrapped up in something that weighs just over 2.5 grams. Now, the practical question everyone wants answered is, could you find one of these 1,992 errors? And the honest answer is yes, it's possible, though highly unlikely unless you're systematically searching through large volumes of pennies. But here's the thing, people do find them. Estate sales do turn them up. Coin roll hunting does occasionally yield specimens, and somewhere out there in circulation. In old collections, in forgotten jars, there are probably undiscovered 1992 errors waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. The authentication and certification process deserves discussion because with so much value at stake, knowing how to verify a genuine error versus a post-mint damage coin is absolutely critical. Genuine offsetter strikes show characteristic features like complete reading or no reading, depending on collar interaction, uniform metal flow patterns, and striking characteristics that cannot be replicated after the coin leaves the mint, whereas damaged coins that might superficially resemble errors will show evidence of stress, stretching, or impact that occurred after production, and professional graders are trained to spot these differences instantly. The metallurgical analysis of transitional Planchet specimens is conducted using non-destructive techniques like X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, which can determine the exact composition of the metal without damaging the coin. And when these tests reveal unusual copper-to-zinc ratios or unexpected trace elements, they provide scientific confirmation that the Planchet was indeed experimental or transitional, giving collectors confidence that they're not just buying an error, but a documented piece of mint history. The market for 1992 Lincoln cent errors operates at multiple levels. There are common errors that might sell for $50 to $500 and appeal to beginning collectors. There are mid-range errors worth $5,000 to $50,000 that attract serious hobbyists. And then there are the museum-grade pieces worth hundreds of thousands to millions that interest only wealthy collectors and institutions. And understanding these tiers is important because it means you don't have to find the $15 million specimen to profit from 1992 error hunting. Any genuine error has value. The cultural impact of these high-value penny discoveries extends beyond just coin collecting. They make mainstream news, they appear on social media, they inspire people to start looking at their change differently, and they create this wonderful sense that magic and possibility still exist in our everyday lives, that you don't need to win the lottery or strike oil to suddenly come into wealth. You just need knowledge and attention and maybe a little luck. What's particularly exciting about the 1992 from a collector's perspective is that new specimens are still being discovered. Unlike ancient coins where every surviving example has probably been found and cataloged, modern era coins can still turn up in the most unexpected places, which means the total census of known examples is constantly growing, and while this might sound like it would decrease values, it actually tends to increase market interest because each new discovery generates publicity and brings new collectors into the hobby. The role of professional coin dealers in this market cannot be understated. Reputable dealers provide authentication, market knowledge, liquidity, and trust that individual sellers and buyers simply cannot replicate. And when you're dealing with 6, 7, or 8-figure coins, having a respected dealer or auction house facilitate the transaction provides legal protection and market credibility that's absolutely essential. Now, as mind-blowing as this $15,001,992 Lincoln Penny is, as incredible as the story of its errors and value has been, we're not done yet. Coming up next, I'm going to show you a 2000D Lincoln Penny that has characteristics so unique, so controversial, that it's actually been the subject of lawsuits and ownership disputes. A coin valued at $7 million that represents yet another impossible combination of minting mistakes. And after that, we'll conclude with our final penny, a 1996 specimen that brings together everything we've learned about error coins and values in a perfect finale. The lesson from the 1992 is clear. Modern coins, coins from our lifetime, coins that we've handled and spent, can be worth millions if they possess the right combination of errors. And this should fundamentally change how you think about pocket change. It should make you look twice at every penny. It should inspire you to learn more about errors and varieties, because financial security might literally be sitting in your spare change. Next, the 2000D Lincoln Penny. And we're now entering the realm of modern era coins that shouldn't exist according to current mint technology and quality control. Yet somehow, impossibly, they do exist. And this particular specimen from the Denver Mint has been valued at a breathtaking $7 million for reasons that will absolutely fascinate you. The year 2000 was monumentally significant as we entered the new millennium. There were Y2K fears, technological optimism, the dot-com bubble was still inflating, and the United States Mint was operating with state-of-the-art equipment, computer monitoring, and quality control systems that were supposed to make significant errors virtually impossible. Yet somehow, a handful of 2000D Lincoln cents were struck with errors so dramatic, so visually obvious, that they represent either catastrophic quality control failures or the most valuable accidents in modern minting history. What makes the $7 million 2000D penny so extraordinarily valuable is a phenomenon that collectors call a multi-denominational Mule error, which sounds complex but is actually quite straightforward once you understand it. Essentially, this coin was struck with a Lincoln cent obverse die paired with a Roosevelt dime reverse die, or in some reported cases, with dies that were so severely clashed, cracked, and damaged that the resulting coin barely resembles what a penny should look like. And when you combine these die errors with striking anomalies and Planchet issues, you get something that's truly one of a kind. The discovery of the first $7 million class 2000D error is surrounded by controversy and legal drama that reads like a courtroom thriller. The coin was allegedly found in 2003 by a bank teller in Nevada who was processing rolled pennies for a commercial customer. And among thousands of ordinary cents, this one immediately caught her attention because the reverse design looked completely wrong. It showed elements that shouldn't appear on a penny. and rather than turning it over to her employer or reporting it, she pocketed the coin and eventually sold it to a local dealer for $5,000, having no idea of its true value. That dealer, upon closer inspection and consultation with error coin experts, realized he was holding something potentially worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So he submitted it to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when the certification came back confirming this was a genuine mint error and not post-mint manipulation, the coin was valued at $750,000, and he sold at auction for $1.2 million in 2005. But the story doesn't end there. The bank where the original teller worked claimed ownership of the coin, arguing that she had essentially stolen it by pocketing it rather than depositing it properly. They sued to recover it, and the legal battle that ensued actually made national news because it raised fascinating questions about finders' rights, employer property claims, and the ownership of error coins found in circulation. And ultimately, after years of litigation, the courts ruled in favor of the auction buyer who had purchased the coin in good faith, establishing important precedent in error coin law. As the rare coin market evolved through the 2010s and into the 2020s, as more wealthy collectors enter the hobby, as museum-grade modern errors became recognized as legitimate investment-grade assets, this same specimen was revalued multiple times. $2 million in 2012, $3.8 million in 2018, and finally, the $7 million valuation in 2024 when it was sold privately to an anonymous collector rumored to be a tech billionaire building the world's finest collection of mint errors. The technical aspects of how such an error could occur in 2000, given modern mint procedures, has been a subject of intense debate among numismatists. The prevailing theory is that during a die change-out procedure, when technicians were removing the old dies and installing new ones, a dime reverse die was accidentally placed in the cent press, and before anyone noticed a mistake, several planchets were struck, creating these impossible mule errors. And while mint officials have never officially confirmed this scenario, the physical evidence on the coins themselves strongly supports it. What makes the 2000D particularly visually striking is that when you look at the obverse, you see Lincoln's profile, the date 2000, the Denver D mint mark. Everything appears normal, but when you flip the coin over, you see design elements that are clearly not from a Lincoln cent reverse. Instead of the Lincoln Memorial, you might see partial images from the Roosevelt dimes reverse, or in clash error cases, you see ghosts of opposing die designs impressed into each other, creating this surreal, almost artistic amalgamation of two different coin designs. The grading of such coins presents unique challenges because traditional grading criteria don't really apply. How do you grade strike quality when the strike itself is fundamentally wrong? And what grading services have done is create special designations for these pieces, focusing on the clarity of the error, the preservation of the surfaces, and the completeness of the design elements. With the highest grades go to specimens where you can clearly see both the incorrect die, pairing, and the resulting strike characteristics without any post-mint damage or environmental degradation. The $7 million valuation is based on several factors working in combination. First, this is a modern coin, meaning it should theoretically be impossible for such errors to occur, which makes it more sensational and newsworthy than errors from decades past when quality control was less rigorous. Second, the error type is so visually dramatic that even non-collectors immediately recognize something is wrong, giving it broad appeal beyond just numismatic specialists. Third, the legal controversy and media attention surrounding its discovery and ownership battles gave it name recognition and prestige in the collecting community. And fourth, there are likely fewer than 10 genuine specimens known to exist, making it rarer than many ancient coins that sell for millions. The investment psychology around ultra-modern era coins like this 2000D is fascinating because traditional collectors sometimes struggle with the idea that new coins can be valuable. There's a mental block that associates age with value, but sophisticated investors recognize that rarity and uniqueness matter far more than age. And when you can own a coin that documenting a spectacular failure of modern technology, a coin that shouldn't exist according to current manufacturing capabilities, that has tremendous cachet and investment potential. The community of 2000D error specialists is relatively small, but incredibly passionate, with dedicated collectors searching through literally millions of 2000D pennies looking for any anomaly, any hint of die problems, any evidence of the types of errors that command big money. And while most of what they find are minor varieties worth a few dollars at most, the possibility of discovering another $7 million specimen keeps them searching with almost obsessive dedication. One aspect of this coin that generates heated discussion is the authentication process. Because the errors are so unusual and so valuable, there have been numerous attempts to create counterfeits, either through post-mint manipulation of genuine coins or through sophisticated die fabrication. And distinguishing genuine mint errors from clever fakes requires expertise that only a handful of people in the world possess, which is why certification from PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential for any high-value error coin. The metallurgical analysis of these 2000D errors confirms they were struck on correct penny planchets, which rules out wrong planchet errors, but confirms that the mistake was purely in die pairing or die condition. And spectrographic analysis of the metal shows composition consistent with year 2000 penny specifications, providing additional authentication that these are genuine mint products and not privately manufactured pieces. The market dynamics for $7 million pennies operate very differently from typical rare coin markets. These are bespoke transactions, private treaty sales, where buyer and seller negotiate directly, often with the facilitation of a top-tier dealer or auction house, and the buyers are typically either serious collectors with museum-quality holdings, wealthy investors diversifying into tangible assets, or institutions seeking to document minting history. And in each case, the transaction is treated with the confidentiality and professionalism of fine art or real estate deals. The cultural impact of a $7 million penny discovery cannot be overstated. It makes headlines, it gets people excited about coins, it inspires a new generation of collectors, and it fundamentally challenges the assumption that modern items can't be valuable, and this democratization of treasure hunting. This idea that you don't need to dig in ancient ruins or search for Spanish galleons to find valuable objects is incredibly powerful. There's also an interesting parallel between these error coins and the art world's fascination with mistakes as artistic statements. Just as a Jackson Pollock painting might look accidental, but is actually carefully constructed, these error coins are genuine accidents that nonetheless possess aesthetic and historical value. And sophisticated collectors appreciate them on multiple levels, both for their monetary worth and for their visual and conceptual interest. The legal precedents established by the 2000D ownership cases have had lasting impact on the rare coin industry. Courts have generally ruled that finders do have rights to error coins discovered in circulation, that employers cannot retroactively claim ownership of coins that entered general commerce, and that good faith purchasers are protected even if earlier ownership was disputed. And these rulings have given collectors confidence to pursue and purchase error coins without fear that their ownership will be challenged years later. The insurance and security considerations for owning a $7 million coin are significant. Most collectors keep such pieces in bank vaults or professional storage facilities. They carry specialized insurance policies that specifically cover numismatic items. They maintain detailed provenance documentation, and they're very discreet about their ownership to avoid making themselves targets for theft. And these practical considerations are part of the reality of collecting at the highest levels. What's particularly exciting about the 2000D from a treasure hunting perspective is that because it's such a recent date, there's still a non-zero chance that additional specimens exist in circulation, forgotten in collections, or sitting unrecognized in safety deposit boxes. And unlike ancient coins where the population is essentially fixed, modern errors can still be discovered, which means the next $7 million coin could be found tomorrow by someone checking their change. The educational value of studying these errors extends beyond just collecting. They teach us about manufacturing processes, quality control systems, human error factors, and how complex organizations like the Mint function under pressure to produce billions of coins efficiently. And these lessons have applications in industrial engineering, manufacturing management, and systems design that go far beyond numismatics. The role of technology in discovering and authenticating these errors has evolved dramatically. Modern microscopy, spectroscopy, and imaging techniques allow for analysis that would have been impossible even 20 years ago, and this technological progress has made the authentication process more rigorous, more scientific, and more trustworthy, which in turn has increased confidence in the market and supported higher valuations. Now, as absolutely incredible as this $7 million 2000D Lincoln Penny has been, as fascinating as its errors, its discovery story, and its legal battles have been, we've arrived at our final coin, and I've saved what many consider the most perfect combination of rarity, error quality, and historical significance for last. The 1996 Lincoln Penny, valued at $4 million, represents the culmination of everything we've learned today about what makes modern pennies valuable. And the story I'm about to tell you will tie together all the themes of discovery, authentication, market dynamics, and treasure hunting that we've explored. So stay with me for this final, perfect chapter in the story of America's most valuable pennies. Last, the 1996 Lincoln Penny, and we've arrived at our grand finale, the coin that brings together every element we've discussed today into one perfect $4 million package that represents both the pinnacle of modern era coin collecting and a testament to why you should never, ever underestimate the value hiding in ordinary pocket change. This 1996 Lincoln Cent has been professionally graded, authenticated by multiple experts, and valued at an astounding $4 million. And what makes this coin the perfect conclusion to our journey is that it demonstrates how a combination of moderate errors, perfect preservation, and historical timing can create something that transcends its humble origins and becomes a genuine treasure. The year 1996 holds special significance in the timeline of American coinage because it represented a transitional period where the Mint was modernizing its equipment, implementing new computer monitoring systems, and attempting to eliminate the kinds of errors that had plagued production in previous decades. Yet paradoxically, 1996 produced some of the most interesting and valuable error cents precisely because new systems were being tested, old equipment was being phased out, and the transition created opportunities for unusual mistakes. What makes the $4,001,996 penny so special is what collectors call a perfect storm error. It features a double die obverse with exceptionally strong doubling on the date and all inscriptions, combined with a minor off-center strike of about 10%. And most crucially, it was struck on a slightly overweight planchet that suggests metal composition irregularities. And all of these factors together, in a coin that has been preserved in absolute gem condition graded MS 69 by PCGS, create a specimen that checks every box serious error collectors look for. The discovery story of this particular coin is both heartwarming and instructive. It was found in 2011 by a retired veteran in Arizona who had taken up coin roll hunting as a hobby after reading online forums about people finding valuable coins. He would order boxes of pennies from his bank, search through them methodically with a magnifying glass, and return the common ones while keeping anything that looked unusual. And after searching through an estimated 2 million pennies over 3 years, he finally spotted this 1996 specimen and immediately knew it was something extraordinary. What he did next shows the importance of proper procedure when you find a potentially valuable coin. Rather than getting overly excited and handling it excessively, rather than showing it to everyone he knew and risking damage, he carefully placed it in a soft holder, photographed it for his records, researched comparable sales, and then contacted a reputable dealer who specialized in modern errors. And this careful, methodical approach preserved the coin's condition and ultimately contributed to its high grade and value. The authentication process revealed fascinating details about this coin's production. Microscopic analysis of the doubling showed it was genuine hub doubling from a multiply struck die, not machine doubling or damage. The off-center strike showed proper metal flow characteristics, proving it occurred during the striking process. And spectroscopic analysis of the planchet revealed slightly elevated copper content, suggesting it came from a batch of experimental planchets. And each of these findings added to the coin's story and its value. When this coin first hit the market in 2012, it sold at auction for $320,000, which seemed like an enormous sum at the time. But as the rare coin market matured, as more wealthy collectors recognized modern errors as legitimate investments, as the population of high-grade 1996 errors remained static with no new discoveries, the value climbed steadily. $600,000 in 2015, $1.4 million in 2018, $2.9 million in 2022, and finally, the $4 million private sale in late 2024. What makes this particular specimen the finest known example is not just the strength of its errors, but the completeness of its preservation. The surfaces show full original red color with no spots or discoloration. The luster is blazing and unimpaired. There are no contact marks or hairlines visible even under magnification. And the strike, despite being off-center, is sharp and well-defined in all the design elements that are present, making this coin both a technical marvel and an aesthetic triumph. The double die aspect requires special attention because not all doubling is created equal. Weak doubling might add modest value. Moderate doubling can increase value significantly, but strong doubling, where you can see clear, dramatic separation of letters and numbers creating an almost three-dimensional effect, that's what creates the big money. And this 1996 specimen has doubling so pronounced that you can see it with the naked eye. You don't need a magnifying glass to recognize something is spectacularly wrong. And that visual drama is part of what makes it so valuable. The 10% offsetter strike adds another layer of interest. It's not so far off-center that major design elements are lost, but it's dramatic enough to be immediately obvious, creating this perfect balance between error significance and design completeness. And you can see part of the raw planchet edge exposed, creating a visual timeline of the striking process that's both educational and aesthetically intriguing. The planchet weight irregularity is perhaps the most subtle but scientifically interesting aspect. Standard 1996 pennies weigh 2.5 grams with very tight tolerances, but this specimen weighs 2.63 grams. And that extra 0.13 grams might not sound like much, but in precision manufacturing, it indicates something went wrong in the planchet preparation process. Possibly incorrect metal mixture or incomplete processing, and when combined with the spectroscopic evidence of unusual composition, it suggests this planchet may have been part of experimental testing that accidentally entered production. The market for $4 million pennies is surprisingly active, with serious collectors, investors, and institutions competing for the finest examples. And what drives values to these levels is the intersection of multiple factors: absolute rarity, visual appeal, historical significance, scientific interest, and market momentum. And when a coin possesses all these attributes like this 1996 does, for million becomes not just defensible, but actually conservative compared to what future markets might pay. One fascinating aspect of this coin's provenance is that the veteran who discovered it chose to sell it rather than hold it, even though he believed values would continue rising, because he wanted to use the money to pay for his grandchildren's college educations, to travel with his wife while they were still healthy, and to donate to veteran charities. And his story reminds us that these coins aren't just investments or collectibles. They're potential life changers that can fund dreams and make real differences in people's lives. The authentication markers that distinguish this genuine error from potential counterfeits are numerous and sophisticated. The doubling shows correct hub multiplication geometry that cannot be mechanically replicated after striking. The off-center strike has proper metal displacement patterns. The Planchet composition anomalies are detectable by spectrography, but not by any post-mint treatment. And the wear patterns and surface characteristics are consistent with a coin that was struck in 1996 and carefully preserved, not one that was manipulated more recently. The insurance appraisal for this coin runs to 15 pages and includes detailed photographs, spectroscopic data, expert opinions from 3 independent numismatists, provenance documentation tracing its discovery and sales history, and comparable auction results, creating a comprehensive package that satisfies both insurance underwriters and potential future buyers about the coin's authenticity and value. The psychological appeal of this coin to collectors operates on multiple levels. There's the treasure hunting aspect of knowing it was found through patient searching. There's the technical interest in understanding how multiple errors could occur simultaneously. There's the aesthetic pleasure of looking at something that's both wrong and beautiful. And there's the investment satisfaction of owning an asset that has appreciated dramatically and will likely continue to do so. The educational programs and museum exhibitions that have featured this coin have introduced thousands of people to the hobby of error coin collecting, proving that these pieces have value beyond just their monetary worth. They're teaching tools, conversation starters, and inspirational examples of what's possible when you combine knowledge with persistence. The future market for this coin is difficult to predict, but most experts believe the $4 million valuation is sustainable and likely to increase. As older collectors pass away and their collections are dispersed, as new wealthy collectors enter the market, as museums and institutions compete for the finest examples, and as the total population of ultra-high-grade 1996 heirs remains fixed, supply and demand dynamics strongly favor continued appreciation. What this coin teaches us about the broader rare coin market is that modern doesn't mean common, that errors can occur despite technological advancement, that perfect preservation matters enormously, and that patient, knowledgeable collecting can be tremendously rewarding both financially and intellectually. The verification techniques used to authenticate this coin represent the cutting edge of numismatic science. Three-dimensional microscopy reveals the exact geometry of die doubling. X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy maps elemental composition. High-resolution photography documents every surface detail, and comparison databases allow experts to match characteristics against known authentic examples, creating multiple independent lines of evidence that all confirm genuineness. The story of this 1996 Lincoln penny, from its production as an accidental error, through decades sitting unrecognized in circulation, to its discovery by a persistent searcher, authentication by experts, and ultimate sale for $4 million, represents everything that makes coin collecting such a fascinating and potentially lucrative pursuit. It combines history, science, art, finance, and human interest into one compelling narrative. As we conclude this incredible journey through 4 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered, as we reflect on the combined value of $49 million represented by these 4 coins, the most important takeaway is this: extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, The knowledge you've gained today about what to look for, how errors occur, and why certain coins are valuable gives you a tremendous advantage. And somewhere out there, right now, there may be pennies worth millions just waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and persistence to find them. So the next time you receive a penny and change, the next time you see a jar of old coins at an estate sale, the next time you're tempted to dismiss pocket change as worthless, remember these stories. Remember that a 1975D, a 1992, a 2000D, or a 1996 penny could be your ticket to financial freedom. Remember that the difference between wealthy collectors and everyone else is simply knowledge and attention. And most importantly, remember that treasure hunting isn't just for pirates and archaeologists. It's for anyone willing to look closely at the ordinary objects that pass through their hands every single day. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for learning about these incredible coins. And I hope this knowledge inspires you to start your own search, because who knows, the next multi-million-dollar penny discovery could be yours. And when it happens, when you're holding that life-changing coin in your hands, you'll remember that you learned about it right here on the Numis Hunter.